Welcome back, everyone, as we dive into some more of Philomena Cunk. So if you're not familiar with Philomena Cunk, it's actually a character played by an actress named Diane Morgan, and she basically puts this on as like a spoof on history. And my understanding is that these real historians that she is interviewing, they know that it's a comedy show, but they don't necessarily know what questions she's going to ask. So their reactions are their best attempts at being real in those situations. So I don't know exactly what clips we're going to be dealing with here. We're just doing some highlights. As always, what I'm going to do is we're going to laugh and we're going to have fun and we're going to be entertained. But I'll be the serious guy and try to offer some real historical feedback to the things that they are talking about, if it's stuff I know about, which I expect that I'll know a little something about the things they're covering. So, if you want to check it out, go to Netflix, go to BBC channels if you have streaming services that have BBC. A lot of great Philomena Cunk stuff out there. I know there's a whole new series on Netflix that just went up, so check that stuff out for sure. Let's dive in.
Who are you?
I'm Ian Borden. I'm a professor of architecture at University College London.
What is a building?
A building is anything that anyone has built.
So my shoes are a building. How many three wise men were there?
Who knows?
How many three wise men were there? Well, obviously, we're dealing with the Bible. We're talking about magi. They were never called wise men, called magi. And it never says there are three of them. It only says there are three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Could have been 20 of them. Could have been 2 of them. There are stories that have been written down that include their names and things like that, but those are extra biblical sources. We really don't know for sure how many there were.
And I
don't understand.
And I should mention too, and this is a pet peeve of mine, is that when people have the wise men, the magi, in their nativity scenes, no, the Bible says they came to a house where Jesus and his family were staying sometime after he was born. Could have been 2 weeks, could have been a year later. Wasn't at the manger scene.
And bread sauce.
It's a great way of making a really savoury sauce.
Bread and sauce are 2 completely different things, aren't they?
Well, they are, but you can grind the bread down and then cook it in milk to make a really good sauce.
It just looks like sort of...
He's doing so well at just kind of going with it. I love it.
Cheers.
He doesn't know where to go with this one.
When Henry died, Edward became king, aged just 9 years old.
Edward died aged 15, the youngest anyone had ever died of old age.
The youngest anyone had ever died of old age. So Henry VIII's whole thing was about having a son, right, that he could pass the throne on to, and he goes through his first 2 wives, Catherine of Aragon and then Anne Boleyn, and both of them each only give him a daughter who actually will become queen someday. Catherine of Aragon's the mother of Queen Mary, who we know as Bloody Mary. Anne Boleyn's the mother of Elizabeth I. And then Jane Seymour, his third wife, is going to give him that long-awaited legitimate son. He had an illegitimate son. But yeah, Edward VI is only going to live for a short time, then the throne's going to pass to his sister Mary.
Teach your kids Shakespeare.
And before any of you say anything, I know that in there for a while is Lady Jane Grey, but you can count her or not count her as actually being queen.
Did their heads grow physically bigger?
No.
It's comforting, isn't it, to realise we don't have nuclear weapons these days?
Well, it depends who you mean by we. The British have got nuclear weapons and have recently indeed decided to increase the number of warheads that's...
So, and I think this was one that was in the last video we did of hers. Yeah, in fact, let's take a look at the map of who all has nuclear weapons or we believe to have nuclear weapons. So, Russia's estimated to have about 6,000 of them. United States has about 5,400 of them. China, 350. France, UK, Pakistan, and India. That's a real dangerous powder keg there. Israel, probably 90. North Korea's got 20 to 43 of them. And then, of course, there are countries that host nuclear weapons in other countries. So Turkey, Italy, Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands all have nuclear weapons within their countries. And it says here that one nuclear weapon over New York City would, and they are detonated over, they don't hit the ground, they're detonated over top of, would cause an estimated nearly 600,000 fatalities. And of course it depends on the yield of the nuclear weapon, how many megatons it is. would determine. So if you drop like the Tsar Bomba, which is the largest nuclear weapon that's ever been detonated, it would be significantly worse. But nobody's got Tsar Bombas sitting around that they can launch on ICBMs or anything like that.
That they possess.
Yep, yeah, but they're blanks, aren't they? They're full of blanks.
No, not at all. No. These are fully capable missile systems with nuclear warheads. Many other states have them.
She's going to cry.
That nuclear war and the threat of nuclear destruction.
And I shouldn't be laughing about this because nuclear weapons, it's a scary thing, but it's still funny.
With us.
She's doing so good with this. And he's just
Right, can we talk about
stern.
something a bit more cheerful?
Anything you like.
Do you like ABBA?
I love ABBA.
Dude, there's ABBA. There's this ongoing theme, at least in the videos I saw on Netflix, where they, every so often, they'll go back and refer to things like ABBA.
When a feminist looks in the mirror, do they see an equal woman or a better woman?
They quite often, like all of us, look for what they want to see and they look for what they hope to see.
You see yourself back to front, don't you, in a mirror? But not upside down. Why is that?
Well, hopefully, because that's the way that mirrors are designed.
I have so much admiration for these historians that are just going with the flow with her and being good sports about it. It is interesting to note that when our eyes process light into their eyes and images, they do process them upside down and then our brains flip it around.
What power's a mirror? Sorry, you're not the mirrors expert, are you?
You're not the mirrors expert.
Insult to injury, that money will most likely have a picture of a man on it because most banknotes don't have women on them, apart from the Queen, who's on all of them.
Who's on all of them? So I believe that is the statue that is out front of Buckingham Palace, which is a really cool place to visit. I know it's a touristy thing to do, but it's a pretty cool place to visit if you ever go to London.
Maybe one day, human beings won't need buildings anymore.
And I should mention here, too, if you ever go to London, boy, there's so much history right in this spot here, right? So the Tower of London's right here. You got the HMS Belfast, which I did do a video about, and eventually I'll get to editing it and put it up for you. Tower Bridge is right here. That is not London Bridge. London Bridge is the next one down. It's just a plain-looking bridge at this point.
Although, for that to happen, we'd probably need to evolve skins made of bricks. And that might take at least another 30 years. Macbeth is startled at dinner by the unexpected appearance of Banquo's ghost, played here for some reason by the letter H.
Which of you have done this?
But what
Played by the letter H. So, okay.
was so great about Henry VIII? Why is he the king we all still remember, unlike, say, Richard V? Well, for one...
We don't remember Richard V because there hasn't been one. There's only been 3 Richards, and I don't think anybody wanted to take on the name of Richard after Richard III because of how... Richard II, actually, honestly, none of the Richards were very good. Richard I, everybody remembers him, he's the Lionheart, but he spent 6 months of his reign in England, the rest of it outside the country, nearly bankrupted the country, paying getting his ransom paid when he was captured. Richard II was deposed as king, and that eventually leads to the Wars of the Roses. And then Richard III, of course, we all remember him. He loses at the Battle of Bosworth, defeated by Henry Tudor.
He was fat, so he takes up more room in the memory.
So the Andromeda Galaxy is going to hit us.
The Andromeda Galaxy? A whole galaxy is going to hit us?
Yeah. On about the same time scale, actually.
So could we fall down a black hole?
Yeah, you could fall into one.
Is that the same? Because I heard that you could be, if, you know, this is one way that the world could end, is that we're all just sucked off through a hole.
Sucked off through a hole. Andromeda's the nearest galaxy to us, and it's pretty cool. You know, if you've got a decent telescope and you've got a camera hooked up to it, you can take pictures of these galaxies. Every star that you see in the sky with the naked eye is in the Milky Way. That's just the way it works.
I mean, that must be terrible. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be sucked off through a hole?
Yeah.
Back in Queen Victorian times, women weren't allowed to vote, even though we had a female king. So some women formed a gang called the Suffrage...
Even though we had a female king. Queen Victoria is queen from 1837 to 1901. And it's a time of a lot of reforms. There are a lot of voting reforms that take place during that time. And voting is given to a lot of new people in the UK. But yeah, women don't get to vote until later. And it was at times pretty violent, the women's suffrage movement in England. In fact, at one point, I believe it was women suffragettes who detonate a bomb that damages the Stone of Scone, which is that stone of destiny that is in Scotland now, but they'll have under the coronation chair when King Charles is crowned in a couple weeks.
Suffragettes. 1 in 20 people has been a victim of crime, which means that 19 out of 20 people are criminals. No wonder we need police.
No wonder we need. Okay.
Over the centuries, many things have been used as money, including amber, wheat, eggs, travellers' checks, feathers, book vouchers, lobsters, beads, gold, leather, nectar points, rice, peas, mugs and money. It was only the last of these that caught on. It's almost unbelievable that before Charles Darwin invented evolution in 1859...
Before Charles Darwin invented evolution. And really cool, if you go to Westminster Abbey, there's this section of, because there's all these famous people that are buried in Westminster Abbey, but there's one little section. You got like Charles Darwin and Isaac Newton and, oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank on his name? The guy who had ALS. Stephen Hawking. All of them are buried real close to each other. And then, it's really, really neat just to see how much history is there.
Without him, none of us would be here today, except in the form of fossils or gibbons. This is the National Theatre. It's designed to look so horrible that people are glad to be inside watching boring plays. Today, Britain stands at a fork in its crossroads, and its people are asking questions. Now we've got our country back. What actually is it? Who are we and why? You know when you read a word in a book and you sort of hear that word in your head, how do they get the sounds into the ink to make it play in your head?
Well,
if I was the historian in that case, I wouldn't even know where to go with that. It is interesting, though, that the way we read Shakespeare today is not necessarily how it would have sounded, because the pronunciation of some of those words have changed. So it's really fascinating to listen to people reading Shakespeare as it would have sounded at the time that it was written, the early 1600s when these Shakespeare plays were becoming popular.
He wrote, "The world to an end will come in 1881, a claim which has recently been debunked by experts through a careful process of looking around and seeing the world still here." Today, some people choose to turn the outside of their homes into a giant advent crown. A jolly house covered in electric lights may be expensive and use a lot of power, but it's the perfect way to cheer up a world worried about climate change and dwindling resources. Queen Elizabeth I got a crown screwed on here in Westminster Abbey.
See what? Say Westminster?
It was in this ship Drake became the first person to circumcise the globe, which is...
To circumcise the globe. To circumnavigate the globe. Yeah, because, we usually talk about, who was it, Magellan doing that, but he didn't make it because he died during his journey.
Probably why this sort of ship is called a clipper. People genuinely believed witches were amongst them. Their fear fueled by leaked photos like this.
Leaked
Did
photos.
Did an explorer ever try to sail into the sky? Find a bit of sea that's sort of going up and...
No.
We're often told to feel sorry for those who are alone at Christmas. But these days, that's all of us, and it's brilliant. Why did Nelson always have one hand up his jumper? What was he doing up there?
He'd lost most of his right arm, so...
The pagans
Yeah, it's quite something when we talk about Horatio Nelson, one of the great heroes, obviously, of the United Kingdom, wins that victory at Trafalgar, but is killed during that victory. I mean, there's not very often that you have heroes in their greatest hour of triumph, dying in that moment. But it does happen.
Celebrated the solstice by cutting down holly and ivy and dragging it into their homes, along with a giant Yule log which they'd set fire to. It sounds rubbish, but with no app store to speak of, killing trees and plants was as good as entertainment got, even at Christmas. Despite being the stuff of nightmares, Santa is the world's most popular home intruder.
Home intruder. And that particular Santa mask was the stuff of nightmares, I'll give you that. Does anybody remember the Burger King commercials where they had the guy dressed as the Burger King and people would just be going about their day and you'd look over and you'd see him like peeking out from behind a tree? That was the stuff of nightmares.
But at Christmas 1914, there was a brief ceasefire. The fighting stopped. Soldiers got out of their holes and joined together in a place called No Man's Land, showing that even at moments of peace, men will still divide into two sides and try to beat one another.
Yeah, there were games of football that took place during that Christmas truce. And if you want to learn more about the Christmas truce, I did a podcast episode on that, and I'll also throw up a link on the screen here to my video from one of the sites in Belgium where we know the Christmas truce took place, telling a little bit of that story. All right, that was entertaining. That was fun, as always. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have recommendations for things you'd like me to do reactions to, I always welcome those. You can use the comment section below. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.